Welcome to Ferocious Achievers. I'm James Heppner, founder and CEO of Heppner Results Coaching. We help people achieve in the healthiest of ways. We celebrate the entire entrepreneurship journey, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Whether you are on the hilltop of top achievement or whether you are on the dry and dusty road of hardship, we help you participate with what's directly in front of you so that you can expand your capacity and enjoy the experience no matter the outcome. We help successful people stop the self-sabotage, raise their standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, whatever their circumstance. We believe that every person has a unique message that can positively impact the world. Stick around to the end of the show where we'll reveal exactly how you can be our next guest in 20 to 25 minutes. Let's go. Welcome to the show today, folks. Today I have with us someone by the name of FILIP KEUPPENS, and he is the Vice President of Global Sales Marketing for a little company, not so little anymore, but the Pickle Juice Company. FILIP, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Awesome. So just before you and I started recording, I said to you, hey, listen, I like your shirt, and it has something to do with cucumbers. And you go, yeah, and you show us the logo. And what do you got on the sleeve?
Yeah, we've got the bottle right here on the sleeve. So
very cool.
Kind of fun. We get to wear fun clothes at the office.
I like it. It's so good. Listeners, I want you guys to know that Pickle Juice has nothing to do with cucumbers. It's an innovative brand that uses a proprietary grain and blend of vinegar that blocks that nerve signal that's being sent from the brain to the muscle that initiates cramping. And so Pickle Juice is an organic, briny beverage, and it's the only scientific backed solution to prevent muscle cramps. Talk to us, FILIP. How did you land into the Pickle Juice Company? I think it's a fascinating story. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, thanks. It's been about 8 years now since I joined the organization, and since then we sort of revamped it, redeveloped the formula, changed our go-to-market strategy, sort of found our niche, if you will. And you alluded to it earlier. We've been named one of the fastest growing food and beverage companies in North America 3 out of the past 5 years or something like that. So it's been an incredible journey so far, really exciting and humbling. But I sort of fell into it. I have a background in some sports. I was a rugby player and a competitive skier. And always, muscle cramping is a thing, especially in endurance sports. And when you talk to 10 people, you'll get 12 answers on how to deal with it. Well, this company was inspired by the hottest game on record in the NFL. And it was in September of 2000 when the Dallas Cowboys were playing the Philadelphia Eagles at the old Dallas Cowboys Stadium. They were heavily favored to win, lost to the Eagles. And after the game, the athletic trainers for the Eagles were being interviewed and asked why their players were not cramping, but the Cowboys were. And they said they were drinking pickle brine. So then the company started bottling what was effectively a pickle brine. And fast forward to 2010 when Dr. Kevin Miller out of BYU discovered that muscle cramps are a neurological phenomenon, not a physiological one. So then there was some basis for understanding. And then in 2015, we started really experimenting with how to target those nerve receptors. And we sort of figured out that it was an esophageal receptor at the back of the throat that can disrupt the muscle cramps. So we had to overwhelm that pathway and played around with different blends of vinegar and found the very narrow range of vinegar that disrupts and interrupts that muscle cramp signal from coming through. So with a lot of research since, we recently completed a study through a partnership at Stirling University that had 100% efficacy with the UK national swim team. So it stops those cramps in 85 seconds. And like you said at the beginning of your show, we are the only product in the world that is scientifically proven to stop cramps, and it's got nothing to do with pickles.
85 seconds for anyone that has had muscle cramps. I've had them every now and again, and I'm not a competitive skier, nor am I a rugby player, but anybody that's had muscle cramps, we know those things can be that experience. That's pretty intense. And 85 seconds later, I don't know if you're familiar in this, CFL, Canadian Football League, number 85 is Milt Stegall. So perhaps I'll have to contact Milt after the show and say, hey, brother, you got 85 seconds to your name. It's Pickle Juice. It's so good.
Nice. Yeah. My favorite CFL player will always be Doug Flutie, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. Well, thanks for the share. I can appreciate. I can appreciate. The only thing is Doug Flutie. I don't think he played for the Bombers, and I'm a Bombers fan, and Milt Stegall did. So whatever. It's a Winnipeg. It's a little story. So there you go.
Sorry, you gotta love Dougie though, right? All the guy did was win.
I know it's pretty much he just threw it up, and then guys made him. Some people say guys made him look good, but I think he was actually good. So yeah, there you go.
For sure.
Talk to us a little bit about how exactly, if you don't mind, just get into the weeds a little bit, like get into that expertise. Share with us at a high level, like what does it actually do? It churns off the pain receptor, is what I'm guessing,
Hmm.
like you're right. And so it's,
Kind of.
it's basic. Go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. As I mentioned earlier, muscle cramps are a neurological phenomenon, not a physiological
Mhm.
one.
Mhm. Mhm.
And by that I mean that
Mhm.
when you get
Mhm.
a muscle cramp, it's your brain responding to a physiological trigger. That physiological trigger could be any one of a dozen things. It could be dehydration driven, circulatory driven. That's why people get like nighttime leg
Mhm.
cramps as we get a little older.
Mhm.
It could be electrolyte imbalance, which is usually driven by sodium, but not always. It could be potassium, magnesium, some other stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, but when one of those triggers sends a signal to your brain tries to affect a massage from the inside out, if you will. So that's why when you get sports induced cramping, it's usually preceded by like that twinging, and that
Mhm.
twinging
Mhm.
is essentially your brain trying to, on a microbiological level, engage and release that muscle. So it's saying engage, release, and that's that twinging. Well,
Mhm.
the signal from your brain to the
Mhm.
muscle, at some point the release signal can't keep up with the engage signal, so then
Mhm.
you find
Mhm.
yourself in a hyper engagement phase of that
Mhm.
muscle. So it's like engage, and
Mhm.
that is, in a very simplistic way of describing it, that's what a cramp is. When
Mhm.
you consume our product, we overwhelm that neural pathway with information, so that signal can't get through. So we're
Wow.
essentially resetting that nerve signal, blocking that cramping signal from getting through, and then flooding the. So we're releasing the cramp, and then flooding the system with electrolytes to prevent it from recurring for up to about 45 minutes. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch.
Your company is one. Let me just say it like this. What I love so much about it is you have and you utilize athletes, but they're unsponsored, right? And so
Correct.
you apparently you don't have need for funding an athlete to go and say good things about your company, which makes me think. So back to my earlier point, when you consume pickle juice and you turn off that neural pathway, and now you don't have this cramp response, and typically last 45 minutes, the effect of talk to us about why do athletes love pickle juice, not just for the immediate release, but for, I would imagine, for the sustained release.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, certain athletes are prone to cramping. We find that about
Hmm.
50% of people in society are prone to cramping.
Hmm.
Some get it, some don't.
Hmm.
It just depends on your chemistry. Like you drew the cramp lottery or not, I suppose. But we, so athletes are going to use whatever works, and cramping is a huge problem for those that get it. I
Hmm.
mean, there's an old saying in racing. It says, don't try anything new on race day unless you're cramping. Then it doesn't matter because your race is over anyway. So and we also want to be completely genuine in not doing any paid endorsements or media, because I feel that can be misleading to the consumer, right? If
Mhm.
you're paying somebody to say, like, you don't know if they're just like doing it for the money or whatever. So
Mhm. Mhm.
the athletes that we see using pickle juice, the big pro athletes that you see in like world cricket or world rugby or the NFL or whatever, NHL, using it, they're not being paid. They buy the
Mhm.
product, they use the product. We're
That's
very fortunate for them to use
fantastic.
the product. We do have a brand ambassador network
Mhm.
of people that are really, really passionate about our product. Um, they're also not financially compensated, but
Mhm.
we do create like a network of collaboration and idea sharing and motivation sharing. So it's a lot more organic that way,
Mhm.
and we feel it's frankly just more genuine that way, right?
Mhm.
We can now go to people and say, look, we don't pay for advertising, we don't pay for endorsements. All of our advertising, if you will, is through either
Mhm.
our sort of organic grassroots network. It's people that believe in what we're doing, believe in our products. We partner with about 500 nonprofit charity events a year, through donating product to aid stations, promoting their events and their causes and things like that. But that's
Mhm.
about as far as we go. We don't write checks
Mhm.
to anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm. Mhm.
our editorial content is only because people are like, oh wow, these guys are doing something like different, not just from a product perspective, but also from a philosophy perspective. So
So maybe
lucky.
right there, Philip, let's just tap in. What do you distinctively do that's different? Like, what do you do, if I could ask you this, that no one else is doing?
Yeah. So other than the science behind the product, which a lot of
Mm,
companies have tried to replicate and none have succeeded. So that's our primary point of differentiation, right? If you're going to go to market, you have to have something is that does a thing that somebody else doesn't do, right?
mhm,
So we're
mhm,
very lucky that we have a product that is the best thing at what it does, and we kind of stay in that lane, if you will. But the way we go to market is through it's a very hyper transparent model. That's a combination of traditional CPG, mission based, and experiential.
mm,
And it's really all about just getting the product in front of people who need it when they need it, and
mm,
then and letting them talk about it. So a
mm,
lot of companies and business leaders are uncomfortable releasing the narrative. They want to
mm,
control the narrative, and that's traditional human nature. What we've
mhm,
done is the exact opposite. We've completely released the narrative. We're completely honest about our mistakes. Everybody makes them. We when people complain about something, if a bottle's broken or whatever, um, we own it. And I think
mm,
people are people, companies are run by people. So
mm, mhm,
be straightforward. And if,
mm,
I think we can list countless examples of companies that like try to cover up their
mm,
mistakes or they try to
mhm.
spin it. But those are the companies we get frustrated with. The ones that we're okay with are the ones that like, yeah, we screwed up and this is why. We fortunately we haven't screwed up really big and hopefully we won't. But I think
Yeah, yeah.
I think accepting the fact that we live in an age of hyper transparency
Mm, mm,
where we are now companies
mm, mm,
are responsible for engaging with their environment rather than
mhm,
dictating to their potential
mm,
clientele. And I think
mhm,
that's something we've gotten pretty
mm,
good at. I think we're
mhm.
very early in adopting that mindset.
I love that. Engage with an environment versus dictating. Dictating is all about control. Dictating is probably just taking for granted that you have a place in the marketplace. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dictating is just saying, hey, we're going to do whatever we say, or whatever we feel like doing. And if we say there's no pickles in it, but we toss a big cucumber right in the middle, then we can get away with that too, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
if you don't mind, I'm fascinated. Actually, I'm deeply fascinated on this authentic, transparent stance. If you were to observe the company, the ethos behind it, the founders, the owners, and then of course they attract you. Like, what is it about their values and about
Hmm.
even your values that honors that so deeply? Because the marketplace has, frankly, too many people that, frankly, when something goes wrong, you email them, you call them, they're gonna engage in a debate versus
Hmm.
just tell us a bit about it and then no questions asked. Like, for example, I had a vendor the other day. It's an ozone product. And so I fill this ozone bag and I do, rectal insufflations 3 times a week. And so I just connected with them because the bags were faulty. And I just mentioned it to them. And just like that, I got an email. Actually, first I got an email suggesting that 3 bags were on the way. And then I got an email saying our apologies, but it was just really nice, really classy. But what would you say from a personal value standpoint? The owners have, and then you likewise, you model that, or you hold those same ethos, or
Yeah.
that mentality. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think what we've done is we've established um, a very collaborative culture within our organization, and I think we brought in the concept that everybody's valued at every level, everybody's opinion matters,
Mm,
and I say we have a really great culture,
mhm,
which is also a really fragile culture, right? Because we allow ourselves to
mhm,
be open to criticism. We allow ourselves. Everybody has a voice.
mhm,
So
mhm,
what that
mhm,
does is that we create us as leaders in the organization
mhm,
have to hold ourselves accountable as well, right?
mhm,
So and it goes back to that engaging versus dictating thing, um,
mhm,
and I think that comes from the old saying where if you want to know what's happening in a battle, don't ask the generals, ask the soldiers in the trenches. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to do. And you know, you talked about the customer experience, and our philosophy is that if somebody takes the trouble to contact the organization about something they're not pleased with, they care enough to go through that effort. So we should care enough to engage them in that, and try to understand what it is that they're discontent with, and and solve it. I think, you know, if somebody's displeased, we go out of our way to turn that negative experience into a positive experience, whether it's through understanding. And look, if we can't if we can't fix it, we'll just give them their money back, right? So if we can't meet their expectations, we'll just refund them. And I think that's, if they don't like our product, we're not going to make them financially responsible for it, because we want our product to be consumed by people who believe in it and believe in us. And the way that we have so many people endorsing our products is because of that mantra, of that transparent mantra. I mean, we were fortunate enough to be covered on the Today Show today, and I just found out I've gotten 5 texts in the last 30 minutes from friends and brand ambassadors. I mean, I see our product on the sidelines of NFL games, and you just don't see that. And I think it's because people are like, you know, these folks are okay. I think I can get behind them. And that's really what we tried to do. And that philosophy starts from the top. So myself and the other leaders in the organization work really hard to maintain a positive culture that's based on humility, self-awareness, and frankly, leading from the front. So, you know, you won't see me asking people to do anything that I won't do myself. So I think that's really important as well.
It's powerful. I can only imagine when you first launch product, it probably takes a bit of time for traction to happen, right? Oftentimes what people say is, hey, you need to get a social influencer, have somebody behind your product. And of course, you know what happens, right? Oh gosh, for me, I'd say it's just a downward slope. It just gets deeper and deeper to the point where all of a sudden, you know, you tap in on a YouTube video and you see these famous people, and all they're doing is just toting the same line. And us, the users on the other end, of course, have to go through all this garbage. And like you say, if you can focus on this collaborative culture, and again, just back to the engaging versus dictating, I think that's a super powerful message. So anybody listening to the show, if your company, you know, wherever you are at in business, I think to always focus on, you know, where are you actually versus what do you want to control the other people to do for you? I think when you're doing it that way, it's just an authentic relational stance, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, here's a question for you. You guys are so authentic, and this is kind of like a tongue in cheek, but why the heck pickle juice? Why do you call it pickle juice when it has nothing to do with pickle juice?
Well, so we kind of suffer the same fate as like Kleenex or Xerox or Sharpie or Thermos, and
Yes.
that there's no such thing as pickle juice, right? Nobody's out there juicing pickles. So it was a
Well, if you don't mind, I'll pause you for a second. When I saw that it was called pickle juice, and I'm a bit of a biohacker, so I'm like researching, it's got to be made of pickles. I'm looking online deep. So I'm going, the benefits of pickles, it's got to be here. Anyway, go ahead. I love it. Keep going.
Yeah, so you know, if you think about it, it's there's no such thing called pickle juice, because it's not like apple juice or orange juice where you're taking the fruit and juicing it. Like it's the pickle is made the other way, where you take a cucumber and you put it in a brine. So the stuff in the jar is called pickle brine. We called it that because while we didn't set out to create that flavor profile, the combination of functional ingredients that does the thing we do kind of gave it a flavor that was unique and somewhat similar to pickles. So we were like, well, we can do one of two things. We can either call it what it does or what it tastes like. But if I handed you a bottle of pickles Cramp Stopper 9000, you'd probably think it was some kind of snake oil. So we're like, well, we'll call it pickle juice. And then the fascinating thing is, because we have had so much success and so much press and viral press, and again, we released that narrative, that we've now found ourselves having to not tell people about the product, but tell people what it's not more than what it is. So it's kind of been a humbling position, but it's, you know, and I tell people all the time, like, you know, what do you call that the thing you blow your nose with, and let's say like a Kleenex, not a
True.
paper tissue,
Right.
or when you get a cut, what do you put on your cut? And they'll say a Band-Aid, not an adhesive bandage. So we're kind of in that same boat, and I think it's
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
we do spend a lot of time because pickled brine out of the jar, if you consume that hoping that for the same effect, you're not going to get it. So
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
that's kind of the backstory on that.
Mm.
It was
Love it.
8 years ago
Love it.
when nobody knew who we were. It was pretty easy, and people weren't using the term pickle juice in the wild. They were calling, they would call it pickle brine, but you don't hear people writing articles about
Mhm.
pickle brine, right? So this is what you see in the news, and then people kind of make their own
Yeah.
conclusions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay. I mean,
No, I hear
it,
you.
it is uniquely a North American problem because
Hmm.
North America is like the only place where there's a big pickle culture. So if you go to Australia or Europe, we don't really have the problem, if you will. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of
Hmm.
unique to North America.
Hmm. Well, on the on the health front, who isn't talking today about pickling pretty much anything, veggies, right? You can pickle a whole whack load of things, and of course fermentation and getting good bacteria. So I think you may have just tapped into back to what you're saying about Kleenex, right? So when people talk about pickling, and of course you have pickle juice, it's like, well, why would you bother doing all that pickling? Just go and just pick up a bottle of pickle juice, and you'll be just fine, right? And plus, it'll reduce your cramps. By the way, just thinking about it, so what are some side benefits other than just reducing cramping? Because I can imagine that that you market the product. Of course, like you said earlier, it's not just exclusively to athletes. It's for the older person. I'm 47, so I've had leg cramps in bed. So if I'm old, like you, I don't know if that's the case, but it's for other people like myself, whatever. So what are some benefits, some common when people ask that this product also helps with?
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of anecdotal stuff,
Mm,
and we have a lot of fun with it. But we do really try to focus in our lane. So our active
mm,
and conscious message is muscle cramping. That's
mm,
it.
mhm, mhm,
We've heard other people tell us that it helps.
mm,
It's big in the keto community.
mhm,
People get like keto flu. People have I've heard success with people using it for restless leg syndrome. We're often asked, does it help with hangovers? And our response is always research is inconclusive, extensive, and ongoing.
Always.
Yeah. So, so there are other applications that people use it for,
Mm,
but we won't actively endorse it for anything that we can't prove scientifically,
mm,
because we
mm,
don't want to make claims that we can't 100% verify and prove with a very high level of efficacy.
mm,
So, um, while we've heard
mm,
it being used to relieve gout, even,
mm,
but
mhm, mhm,
the
mhm,
only thing we will consciously promote it for is for to stop muscle cramping.
mm. That's fantastic. All right. So this podcast is called Ferocious Achiever. And the reason that I call it Ferocious Achiever is in life, we tend to um, we tend to have an experience with achieving. And if we're not careful, then the achievements that we muster up and put together continue along the same path. And the same path, oftentimes, and it's not always the same for all, but at the beginning, oftentimes achieving is done through anxiety, right? We do it through anxiety and fear. I just call it anxious striving. And what we want to do when we mature the achiever forward, that's what Ferocious Achievers is really all about. Not more about the hustle, more about the grind, more about the inauthenticity, more about push, 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 less of us, but more of the, of the reality and the truth of where things are actually at. So moving from achieving with anxiety and fear, and instead of using that as a foundation, to achieving with trust and joy as a foundation. I know Tony Robbins, he says, achieving to be happy versus happily achieving. There's the unique split. If you don't mind me asking, I got just 5 quick questions, and I think you're a great guest for this because you've already done a lot of the work. Your company's done a lot of the work. Your foundation is set on that principle, and I'm just proud to have you on. But if you don't mind sharing with the audience here, what are some core daily behaviors or rituals that anyone can use to help them move from achieving with anxiety and or fear as the foundation to achieving with that trusting and that joyful anticipation and just being okay with the results?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's being okay with the results and not trying
Mm,
to work from your goal backwards. It's about working from the process forwards, and being we talked earlier about releasing the narrative, right? And I think that applies to individual work ethic as well. People are so obsessed. One of the phrases that frustrates me the most is when people are like, say things like perception is reality. I had a boss way back in my earlier career that said perception is reality. And I always disliked that because I was like, that's, you're consciously trying to be disingenuous to project something that you're not in order to mislead your audience. Why would you do that?
Right,
Just
right.
focus on being who you want to be. And if you can't be who you want to be, accept who you are and work within that space. And I think it requires a healthy self-awareness and knowing that who you are is okay. There's nothing wrong with where you are, who you are, and find the thing that you're good at and do that in the way that you can be most passionate about being, and the results will come. And it's funny. A few years ago, I was honored by an award at my alma mater, and it was an entrepreneur award. And I told I told the students, I said, people who win awards like this tend to win a lot of them. And that's not because they set out to do that. It's because they have a mindset that is consistent with being recognized for those things. And that mindset is usually the opposite of what you think it is. Most of those people are not seeking the recognition. They're not seeking to become wealthy or self-actualized or anything like that. They are passionate about, genuinely passionate about what they're doing, and pursue what it is that they're doing with that passion. And that passion becomes transparent and sort of intoxicating, if you will, to others around you. So people kind of get on that bandwagon because they see that genuine passion, and frankly, people want to be passionate about what they're doing.
Well, and I think spotting passion, gosh, we can always spot when people are editing, right? We can always pick up on these nuance, right? These small little things that end up becoming big things. And then, of course, the subconscious doesn't know why it hesitates and doesn't want to align, right? We're like, well,
Yeah.
it sounds good, but I'm just not quite sure if I'm the person, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
So, and great. I love that. That was spot on. But so what would you say that you'd have to focus on differently, and how would your body or your language change so that you could come from that foundation of trusting, that joyful anticipation, just being okay with how it is? And I think, you already said it, like the focus would be who you are and passionate about what you bring and what you're part of. If you could make it really simple, like how does your language change and what happens to your body? And how do you show up from those two angles that make it quite well, I was going to say quite easy, but just congruent within like resting in, hey, this is good. We're okay. Keep going.
Yeah, a saying we love like our little catchphrase sayings at the office. It's not intentional; they just kind of come
Mm-hmm.
out, and we sort of
Mm-hmm.
repeat each other's ones, and it's kind of this fun little thing we have. But one of the things that we say is, we don't take ourselves very seriously, but we take our work very seriously. So
Wow.
we're we try to be humble when we make mistakes. We joke about them. I'll joke about them, so I don't try to convey myself as this like all-knowing leader in the company. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, you guys, you wouldn't believe what I just did. How silly was that? And we sort of have this
Mm-hmm.
team approach, and I've said this a lot of times. When you look at really high achieving teams, it's
Mm-hmm.
not about the individual. It's about the outcome. When I was back when I was coaching rugby, I always gave a very similar speech at the beginning of the seasons, and I said, "What did the at the time? What did the New Zealand All Blacks, Australian Wallabies, and the San Antonio Spurs all have in common?" And the answer is that they had something relating to a non-individualistic approach. And it
Mm-hmm.
used to be that we could take these approaches. You put like these all-star teams, right? And the Spurs win over the Miami Heat, for anybody who's a basketball fan, I found to be the ideal example of this. The Miami Heat were like the all-star team, right? They had LeBron, they had Dwayne Wade, and like these all these incredible players.
Mm-hmm.
And Popovich and the Spurs beat them without any player who was in his current prime or the best at the time in his position. Now, Tony Parker, incredible player, but he was past his prime. Tim Duncan, arguably one of, if not the best in his position of all time. But when they won that championship, he was also, you could argue, past his prime. But they still did it because they worked as a team, and that Greg Popovich is known for being that type of leader. So we try to impart that same type of philosophy. Like, look, we all have a role, and I'm not, and nobody on our leadership team is the type of leader that just tells people to do stuff. I feel that leaders should actively contribute to the value of an organization rather than just dictating orders and identifying problems. We must be part of the solution, and accept that, I said it earlier, everybody's voice is equal, and generally we sort of, using that philosophy, we get there.
Beautiful. Love it. So good. When I say beautiful, I don't know why I keep saying that word. I'm thinking of pickle juice. I do like cucumbers, but there you go. It's all good. I love it. I love it. Okay. It's a great word. It's exactly. Okay. If you could pick one specific thing, just one, what do you as a human, so again, whoever's listening, share if you could, what do you need to unlearn to move even deeper into achieving with a trusting and joyful anticipation versus that foundation of anxiety, worry, fear? Let's get, celebrities to endorse. What's one specific thing you have to unlearn?
Fear. I think fear of failure. Me personally, I always joke that a lot of my success is driven by imposter syndrome and personal insecurities, and I need to do a better job of not taking failures or criticism personally, and that's my personal reflection. That's my personal journey. That's one of the things I need to get better at is not needing constant positive validation. So, I think in a broader sense, I would say that having a sense of self-awareness and knowing that nobody's perfect. And I would argue that hiding imperfections is, rather than embracing them, is harmful. Just embrace your imperfections. Everybody
Exactly.
has that.
Right. And that's your connecting piece often, right?
Yeah. And the reality is your audience knows you have those imperfections.
Yeah.
So just get in front of them and be like, this is my thing, and sort of joke about it. That way people don't tiptoe around little nuanced things. I just always thought that was weird, where people had to behave a certain way around a certain person to accommodate their imperfections, but just acknowledge your own. Everybody's got some.
Totally.
Own it.
Yeah. Exactly. Own it, because here's, and to your play, just tapping in, when you own it, that's very often I find in life. Yeah, we connect on many different things. For example, you talk basketball. So, I'm perhaps not as much of a basketball fan as you, but I do love sport. And so we're connecting on sport. Right. And so I think when we connect, when we think about what actually we want in life, we all want to connect at a deeper level. And if we can, do it with less effort. And so if you're constantly holding at bay your insecurities and you're constantly needing validation, it's just going to limit your connection, and you're going to have to work so much harder to finally get what you want, which is to connect, to just be like soul to soul. Here I am, there you are, let's talk. Right? It's make it super easy.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. In baseball, if you succeed 1/3 of the time that you try,
right? Yes.
you're in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
in hockey,
Yeah.
no goalie has had a lifetime shutout. Like no, like none of, like, you could be Wayne Gretzky. He didn't make all of the shots, right? Like we have to but we demand perfection of ourselves, like in the normal day, and we shouldn't. Nobody is perfect. People fail, but it's, what's the process? Are you learning? Are you trying to do the best that you can? And is that are you in a space that is conducive to your strengths? I mean, the formula is not that difficult. It's just
True.
understanding and changing the mindset that everything has to be perfect all the time. And sometimes good enough is good enough.
Where in your life, where in your personal life, do you need to hold on just a little tighter? So holding on to something a little tighter to help you. And you said like that self-awareness piece, or that success driven through imposter syndrome or validation, which by the way, I have similar to you. I think a lot of men, women, doesn't matter, gender. I think a lot of us have this. We like to hear that other people view us properly. And I think the issue is we need to hear and be okay with how we the inner narrative that we carry within ourselves. But so back to the question, where in your life do you need to hold on just a little tighter so that you can link deeper into that foundation of achieving with trust and that joy anticipation?
Yeah, I'm a total oversharer. That makes people
Really? I
uncomfortable.
didn't know. That's good.
Yeah, and I think I could do well that by maybe um, respecting some boundaries with people because I'll be like, oh yeah, this thing, and they're like, yeah,
Hang
no, no,
on.
no, no, that. Yeah, yeah. So
That's good.
I think sometimes I can come off as a little bit too progressive, and
Mm,
I could do well to be
mm,
uh,
mhm,
more aware that not everybody has accepted this sort
mhm,
of
mhm,
mindset, and some people
mhm,
hold things
mhm,
back because not because they want to convey a
mhm,
certain image, but
mhm,
they don't have the confidence to do so. And I
mhm,
think
mhm,
being a little more aware of that, and that not everybody has this like just let it all out comfort
mhm,
level.
mhm.
I think I could do well by reserving in that space a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's a super self-aware spot that you know that over. By the way, I think an overshare is a fantastic thing typically because what happens is at least what I've experienced when I do that, and that's typically my style as well. You end up kind of cracking the surface, and also in the environment, if it's tense, just seems to relax. The only thing is, to your point, sometimes some people don't feel confident in that. You can actually bring about perhaps an emotion in them or whatever the case is that isn't helpful, and so. I think
Right.
that's yeah, no, that's super good. Where in your life, so last question, where in your life do you need to let go just a little sooner? And again, why? Because we want to move ferocious achievers, moving from anxious achieving down to this trusting and joyful anticipation of just letting it be the way it is. Like, where in your life do you need to let go just a little sooner?
I think I would do well to not like sometimes being like I try to make everything work out, and I think sometimes I overcommit to things that sometimes the
Hmm.
other people involved may not feel the same way, or there are fundamental blockages that I just try to
Hmm.
work through those too much. And I think letting go of that need to bring everything to its conclusion. I tell people all the time,
Hmm.
I desperately need closure for everything. So I think just kind of letting that stuff go and understanding like what what's the old serenity prayer, right? Give
Hmm.
me
Hmm. Hmm.
the the strength to change the things I can, and
Right.
the
Right.
patience to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. So that's
Right.
something I really try to hold tight, and the letting go part
Hmm. Hmm.
sometimes could be
Hmm.
well
Hmm.
because I think it would allow me to spend my time in a more
Hmm.
healthy and effective way doing other
Hmm.
things.
Brother, I really appreciate you're a good man. I really appreciate that you push the needle that far and you hold yourself accountable and you're thinking about what is it that I have control over, not to be controlling, but what do I have control over? And sometimes that kind of runs deep in the veins. And I think that, like you said earlier, that's a large part of why you succeed. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I love it that you're so self-aware. I think that's just fantastic. Give us some final, if you could, some final words of wisdom, like anything that you just want to share that you want to impart on people. It's been just an absolute like honor to have you on. Like it's just phenomenal. I love it. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm humbled, and I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this as well. I don't know if I have the magic the magic lamp, if you will, but I think that I love to live my life in a way where
Mm,
it's okay to trust, knowing that sometimes people are going to take advantage of that trust, because ultimately that life will be better than fearing that somebody might take advantage of you and not experiencing everything that has to
mm,
happen. And I would tell anybody who's a leader to focus on being a facilitator to others rather than focusing on being in charge. And I think if we facilitate the success of other people, and think about the prisoner's dilemma philosophy, we're going to see that success and achievement
mm,
comes so much easier because now we're all, it's that old rising tides raise all ships thing. And I think that that is probably the biggest thing. If we focus
mhm,
on
mhm,
being a, being a facilitator, they used to call it servant leadership and all that stuff.
mhm,
That's where things get easier and success just kind of happens.
mhm, mhm, mhm. And then you get to enjoy it. You don't have to be the one that right. You can enjoy it yourself because it's of you and it's real. And at the end of the day, I think the worst thing is generating success, but then finding yourself in a place of fallacy.
For sure.
Listeners, I challenge you. go find some pickle juice, because we just had Philip on, and Philip was hired by some people who own the company. And obviously, Philip, you can hear it inside and outside. The guy is pickled. The guy seriously is pickled for life in a really, really, really fun, authentic, honest, I get the feeling that I know you, right? And I just really appreciate that. And thank you for that. Philip, where can people find you or the company yeah.
Yeah, so we're in about 15,000 stores in North America, throughout the US and Canada. We now have offices in Australia, distribution South Africa, and UK as well. But so if you can't find us at your local grocery store, you can go to Amazon or picklepower.com. If you're looking for your local grocery store on picklepower.com, just go to the bottom of our homepage and click on the store locator. And if you don't find pickle juice at your favorite store, tell them to reach out to us, because we're always looking for more distribution partners.
There you go. There you go. So listeners, again, I challenge you, and go to picklepower.com and pick up some pickle juice, and send me a little note and tell me how it went, or send the company a little note, like whatever. I'll say it like this, Philip, whatever notes I get, I'll forward to you, or forward to the company. And I just want you guys to have that, because I think you guys are doing some incredible work. So thanks again for being on, my friend. Perhaps we'll do it again sometime in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Awesome. James Heppner here. Thank you so much for listening to Ferocious Achiever. If you are a successful owner, founder, C-suite executive, or CEO who would like to be on this program, please visit us at www.ferociousachiever.com. Near the top of the page, you'll see our Ferocious Achiever lion logo. And right next to that lion logo, to the right-hand side, you'll see a little blue box that when you scroll over top and click on it, it'll take you directly to that guest booking page. Now, if you got something out of this interview, would you share this episode on social media, or send it via email or text? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend, or post it on your socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media, or send them an email or a text. Let them know about the show and include the hashtag Ferocious Achiever. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions, so please don't be shy. Now, we regularly put new content, new episode out, and we do this consistently. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, reviews, those things all go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. You want to know more? Simply go to the website www.jamesheppner.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. And here's something that you don't want to miss. If you want to stop the self-sabotage, you want to raise your standards and participate with unshakable confidence, you will want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz, now found at www.jamesheppner.com/quiz. By taking this little quiz, you will discover exactly where you're making your life unnecessarily difficult, and exactly where your behaviors are cutting you off from the outcomes and goals you crave most. Your quiz results will pinpoint with precise accuracy the exact areas to focus on. This will immediately activate your ability to use your time and resources effectively, and instantly set you on your path to create higher level gains with less strain. Why not get down to the base and discover the truth about what's controlling your life right now? I challenge you, take a few minutes. You owe it to yourself. You're worth it, and your experience of life depends on it. Give yourself the gift by honoring yourself and taking 5 minutes to invest in yourself. Take the Maximize Your Life quiz now, again found at www.jamesheppner.com/quiz. And finally, set yourself on the path that will lead you directly to what you want and need most now. Until next time, peace out, rock up.